Hello and welcome to the Be Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast, where we are reshaping life, leadership, and business from the inside out. And today I am welcoming from Melbourne right here. We're not together though. We're probably a suburb away from each other. So we should have set ourselves up so we could have had a catch up in person. Next time we can do that, Jonathan. But I'm welcoming to the show today, Jonathan Rolley. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, B. So I'd be here.
Yeah, lovely to meet you too, a fellow podcaster. So you can test me and see, because you've been doing podcasting for a while, so you can see if, can give me some tips potentially at the end of the show.
No, you're on a solid F&B. So yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I think we will have quite the chat. And for all the listeners out there, this one is going to, I think, blow your mind a little bit. And, like from a brain perspective, Jonathan's going to share a lot from a neuroscience brain. And I think from a takeaway perspective, I think we're going to all walk away from this thinking about things differently, I think. So I'm going to get into it. Let's start with this. You're a Melbourne guy, you and your partner, your wife and the kids, you moved up to Queensland. You've recently just moved back to Melbourne. And I straight away said pre-show, why? Even though Melbourne's a great state, it's just we're about to hit winter and it's like, yeah. And it's always nice and sunny. Dad of twin boys and a daughter. Wow. You also work at the intersection of neuroscience and human behaviour, challenging how brands think about attention, memory, and decision making. And I should say, you're the founder of Undivided. Completely missed that bit, didn't I? Founder of Undivided, a neuromarketing strategist and author. Your work is grounded in a simple truth, and that is most decisions are made before conscious awareness. Yet most marketing is built for the conscious mind. Through your neuromarketing frameworks, you help organizations align creative media and measurement with how the brain actually works. And this bit pretty much stopped me in my tracks when you responded to my question, and I went in a little bit deeper into you, and you at 18 had a brain tumor, and it forced a direct confrontation with your own brain, shifting yourself from designing what people desire to understanding why desire exists at all. Today, through Undivided and your book, Brands, Brains and Behaviours, you translate neuroscience practical strategies that reduce wasted spend and drive real behavioural impact. And as I said, I always ask a question when people book my podcast, and it's, what's one unique insight or lived experience that's reshaped your life, your leadership, or your business? And it came back to this. A brain tumor at 18 rewired how I thought about the future. I traded designing objects people desire for understanding the neuroscience of why they desire anything. I'm going to hand it over to you to share a bit about your journey and your
Yeah. Thanks, B. I might start where a lot of things started making sense for me. And it's only, again, jobs, quips. The dots only make sense when you look back. And that's really been my journey. Like if I was to go, I was a country boy, grew up in Victoria, love to create, love to build, love to just figure out how things work. I thought my life was set. I found this course called industrial design. I thought I was going to be the next designer for Aston Martin. I thought my life was set. Moved from the country and couldn't wait to get out of the country and move to the big smoke. And again, 6 months in, I literally thought my life was on path. I was on track. And then literally, one cold winter's night, I woke up and I was literally paralyzed. I couldn't move. And my head, it just felt like, with the pain, I still can't even get the words to describe it, but I was literally paralyzed, felt like my head was going to explode. I'd lie there for 2.5 hours. I'd end up just throwing up, and then I'd go back to bed. And this sort of happened, or it did happen, for 7 nights in a row. And I was pretty stubborn. It was only until 7 nights in a row I thought I'd better go see a doctor. So I went to the local GP and they called up a neurosurgeon, and they said, yeah, we need to get him in for a CT scan this afternoon, like straight there now. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is a little bit more serious.
Right.
The interesting thing is, B, I knew deep down in my gut something was not right. And I think that was it, but I was ignoring it and I was hoping it wasn't. Then CT scan, walked out of the CT scan expecting to go home, and they just said, no, we've booked you in at St Vincent's in Melbourne and you're having an MRI at 7 a.m. tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, something is really wrong. So anyway, went to St Vincent, stayed there the night. Thought I'd call my parents and let them know that I wasn't feeling so well. Had a scan, came out. Next thing I know, I'm sitting with three of their head neurosurgeons at St Vincent's. They said, you've got a pinocytoma. It's the size of a large grape sitting in your third ventricle. So it's right in the middle of your brain. As you go to sleep at night, it blocks all your fluid draining up and down, the pressure inside your head. You can literally die at any instant. We're operating tomorrow morning. You've got two choices. One, full craniotomy, and we're going to remove it. You got a 1 in 10 chance of survival. Or we're going to put a stint in and drain the fluid, and that will drain the fluid, but you'll live with the tumour for the rest of your life.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So as an 18-year-old, that was quite a bit to take in. So yeah, that was a decision I was faced with for 18, and then I made the decision, and then had to move back home to the country, which I was desperate to move away from. But I was really sort of guided back there to again heal and recuperate, and there were so many gifts that come out of it. And I think the major gift is anyone that's faced with their own mortality does have a different appreciation for life and the decisions that you make. And you want to be making the decisions that fulfill you and feel good. And even to this day, it's kind of one of the mantras that I have. And I still find myself falling into these traps where it's like, oh, did I orchestrate? Did I actually design this? Because I don't feel like I'm living my purpose right now. Something needs to change or shift. And it's kind of those moments that I do reflect back on my brain share where it's just like, it feels like those moments that there's a decision that needs to be made. Because life's short, it can be taken away in an instant. So yeah, let's live the life that you want to live.
Yeah. Wow. What a story. So then like, yeah, I don't even know where to start because you're 18, you have this kind of, like you say, it's like it's not even it's way bigger than a near death experience, if you like. It's your mortality is staring at you and you've got to make a decision. You make the decision, you go back to the farm or you go back to your family. I don't know why I said farm. You go back to the country. I'm like, were you even living on a farm here? I'm just making up a bit of the story, right? What happens? Like, you obviously start to recover and you talked about gifts, and I truly believe that, when we're faced with, when I've never I've had near-death experiences and never had anything like what you're talking about here. However, whenever we have these moments, you have a choice, right? And you have a choice and you can kinda go, "Woe me, why did this happen to me?" Or you can look at it and go, "Okay, what am I doing now with this? And then how is this going to inform how I go forward and what I do, and how do I find my purpose and fulfill that?"
Yeah. I knew in the moment I wanted to go back to Melbourne because like country was unfulfilling me. I had to take 12 months off to resume my course. But as soon as I got back to my course, I took it far more seriously. So as I came back, I had to start working at Harvey Norman. I was incredibly shy, huge introvert. So for me to get a job at Harvey Norman in sales, like my friends couldn't understand it. My family was like, is this a joke? Like you don't enjoy talking to strangers at the best of times. But that was kind of my gateway to move back. And again, I look back at that and I hand on heart say I was the worst salesperson Harvey Norman has ever employed, but they were desperate at Christmas. And like I got a job and I could come back at Christmas and sort of re-enter moving back to Melbourne. Anyway, the interesting thing at Harvey Norman is I was horrible at sales and talking. But what I was really good at was observing how people behaved and modeling on who was the best in market. And there was two guys that wrote more than literally everyone else in the entire team. There was like 20 salespeople. So the first thing I did was just going, what made them so good? Because I
Mm.
was really bad. I'm like, what are they doing differently to what I'm doing? And there was two things that came through, both of them niched. So one of the sales guys, he just did laptops. He knew the laptops with the highest margin. He knew how to identify the right customer. He had the 5 questions that he always asked that would lead to A, B, or C. And then he knew that the laptop had low margin, but he knew that if I sold a bag that had really high margin, I have extended warranty, and he knew how to increase the lifetime value of a customer. And then he put them on a flexi rent or something like that. So he just knew the process, and it was like clockwork. It was a machine. It was literally in, process, out. I was like, wow, that's really interesting because I was darting all over the store, didn't really know any of the products particularly well, and just came across like a novice rather than a specialist or an expert that could really help solve someone's problem. So that was my exposure to sales. Now, this is where it gets really interesting on two reasons. One, I had a guy, I actually invested in digital cameras. I knew there was 109 cameras there, and I felt like I could solve anyone's problems. My confidence grew really quickly in 6 months, and I ended up turning into one of the best salesperson in the department just by modeling and niching in digital
Yeah.
cameras. And then I had a Japanese guy come through and I asked him my questions and I went through and I was just like, here's your two options, double blind. And I just sort of walking apart and he's like, I don't want either of these. I want a Sony. And I was like, oh, I'm just curious why you want a Sony. It's like, because Sony has never let me down. I don't trust any of these other brands you put in front of me. You don't show me a Sony, I'm walking. I was like, whoa, it was actually really jarring to me. I'm like, what is this thing called brand? Like I thought sales could trump brand, but then I was seeing
Yeah.
brand trump sales. And that also became really interesting. So that sort of led to where I was going. Anyway, back to the brain tumor and university. When I got back to university, I didn't want to waste my life. And I felt like I'd probably been coasting and taking decisions that, were easy. And I was just moving to Melbourne for lifestyle and I'll worry about career and all the rest of it.
Later. Yeah.
Got into university and I started asking my lecturers, realistically, like, what am I going to get paid and what job am I going to get? Because I saw the really smart guys that were lecturing that never actually had a career. They were career teachers. And I was just like, WTF, I don't want to be a career teacher. I don't want
No.
that in the path. And it took me a while to get the answers because none of them were really that overt. The short answer is we have 100 kids here. We've got 100 at Swinburne. We've got 100 at Monash. There's 300 in Melbourne. There's 300 in Sydney. There's 600 that will graduate for probably 5 jobs. So you're going to be working 80 to 100 hours a week and you're probably
Yeah.
going to be packaging design. There'll be one in every 10 years that you'll actually go, and that's globally, go and work at like the likes of Aston Martin. So the numbers are not in my favor. I was good. I was not the best.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was in that moment I was like, another meltdown going, I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life post this. So
You fully recovered at that point? Like, were you fully recovered?
fully recovered, like, yeah, 12 months fully recovered. So yeah, I was back in Melbourne and that's where I got quite fortunate. I remember and I built up my gift or ability to sell. And again, I am not a natural salesperson. It is a learned trait. So I had to learn how to be a good salesperson. And I remember I actually got really fortunate to get an interview with a Fortune 500 company and it was for marketing. I didn't have a marketing degree and they put us in this pen. There was 4 of us graduates there for the graduate program in this Fortune 500. I remember sitting there and they're in like suits and I was asking like, so what do you do? And they're just like, oh, I'm an MBA marketing, blah, I'm like this. And I'm just sitting there going like, I'm an industrial design graduate. What am I doing here against these other marketing? So, and I remember shaping the pitch in that. I'm just like, I need a better pitch after having like a 2-minute meltdown going, I need to walk out because I'm just going to embarrass myself. I'm like, no, what's my angle? And it was just like, no, I understand product. I've been designing and shaping product that fits needs for consumers. That is actually better marketing than just
100.
living it. So that was kind of my whole angle. Interviewed really well, and I was really fortunate to transition then into marketing Fortune 500. So that's kind of where it all, like if I never had the brain tumor, I never would have been a salesperson. If I'd never been a salesperson, I never would have had that experience to get into marketing. And then I went and did my MBA and all the other bits and pieces. So yeah, that's probably where I still reflect back on, yeah, the big moments in life and what do they mean? And they really come back to decisions and what decisions are going to enhance life short, make the most of it. So hence why we're also back in Melbourne. Both my parents who
Yeah,
I've
I love
got.
that. Tell me, how did you double down on neuroscience then? Obviously you had your own experience. Then you kind of talked a lot about human behavior. You're very good at observing and reading reading people's almost like inner psyche, right? And you get this guy coming in and he goes, I want to buy a Sony. You're like, that's interesting. I mean, that's curiosity. When did the neuroscience aspect come into play? Because it has a huge role in how we make decisions. And you're a better expert in this space. I mean, I've studied in neuroscience and flow science, and it's really interesting at this point in time. And choice is something if we're not careful, we could have our choices taken away or lose choice because of the beige of certain things that are happening as we speak, and, the authenticity. And so where I'm going with this is, where did you double down on the neuroscience piece?
I've always been a student. I love learning. So if I go to Harvey Norman, I consumed everything I could on sales, influence, and persuasion. As I grew up, you probably don't want to know this, but you might. Like I was also like, I want to be better with girls. So I wanted to understand the psyche of.
With guys. I need to do it. Like, I need to, yeah, sorry.
So the understanding, like what girls say they want, what they really want, it doesn't match. And you also go like, there's masculine, feminine, what does it actually do to fit? So I also like wanted to study masculine, feminine and what is attraction. So it was kind of like, as I had moments in life, I just wanted to learn. So I started off with sales, and then you'd have like male, female, or masculine, feminine dynamics. And then you go through marketing. And it really, where I started getting really interesting in neuroscience was when I moved from Fortune 500 to advertising, which was at that stage radio. The same process. Who was the best and leading writers at radio? That's who I learned from to create a media schedule. So I knew they were great. What I didn't know was creative, and we had creative directors internally, and I had to trust implicitly because I wasn't the creative. And I remember to this day, I remember seeing scripts. I knew how to sell, and I remember reading these scripts, and I'm like, this is not going to move any needle. Like, this is just going to be waste. But I had no methodology or criteria to go back and go, this isn't going to work. So I was just like, okay. It was only after I had too many failed campaigns in creatives, because I'm the creative, that I'm like, I actually need to figure this out and build my own model. So at least I can give some feedback and direction, because it's so hard getting a client. But if you have failed campaigns, they leave really fast. So that was where I started going, okay, I'm building up my knowledge base. And then that's where I was really got into System 1, System 2, again, a little bit outdated now, but the methodology and principles still resonate if you're looking at a reptilian or croc brain and looking at mammalian, or what I call dog brain, which is your herd animal. And then you're looking at neocortex, which I call the boardroom brain. And the boardroom brain kills more ads than anything else, because it's a rational thought critiquing what is the subconscious. So it's like, how do we make the subconscious processing conscious? And that's what I like to look at, is going, how is someone processing this out with their subconscious and talking that way, rather than using my conscious brain or my neocortex to critique in that? Because that's not how mediums consumed.
Mm.
And that is a critical element.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it? Like, in terms of just like the way the brain and the decisions we make, and then you call out most decisions are made before conscious awareness. And so it is you subconsciously, and then I bring in intuition into this as well, because there's a whole new facet to neuroscience, where what role does intuition play in this also? Do you explore the intuition? Have you been like, is that part of your neuroscience marketing framework as well?
In terms of intuition, no. Like, again, we would be more sales oriented. Like, if you're looking at brand and performance, we do a lot in that space. And everyone loves to put things into categories. Everyone loves to have it's a machine, especially right now with AI. It's really interesting. The human brain is not a machine. Yes, it's a piece of hardware, but it is not an LLM. So this is where you're trying to get an LLM to try and influence and persuade something that, depending how you're feeling and what's going on, is going to behave really differently every time. But there are predictable traits and characteristics that I can influence and persuade. So in terms of that, yes, looking at brand and memory, we historically have been very heavy in the performance space. But what we do know is the memory space really, really well. And a lot of people disguise spend as brand, but it does nothing. It just goes into a bucket that no one's accountable for. It's like we're building revenue for some date in the future. But one thing I know about brand, and if you're creating memory now, you will see the sales needle move today. Like great brand actually outperforms direct response, and it
Yeah.
moves really fast. People that say brand doesn't, it's like, oh, it's going to happen later. It's like, no, you don't have the right assets.
It's really interesting you're talking about AI as well, and you're calling it out, because what are you seeing in terms of, the businesses I'm talking to, and when I'm looking at, especially businesses that are scaling in particular, and, my background is brand and communications. We were all around a long-term, organizing idea and inside out. And I see a lot, and, you said your focus is performance. You still need a story, right, though? You need a story that resonates with the human. Like, I feel like at the moment we're losing, or there's a lot of, the story piece is missing from what I'm seeing across quite a few businesses and brands. Are you, yeah,
There's so much in this. And I go, AI is one of the most powerful things that has ever hit us. It's also
yeah,
one of the most dangerous things
yes,
that
yeah,
can ever cross a marketer's desk.
yeah,
AI is a machine. If it's fed from A to B and it solves a problem and A and B can do it, absolutely go all in because you get speed and efficiency and you can then leverage higher value tasks. So my view of where AI is going, yes, get the machines to do all the dry, laborious, boring work, connect all the dots, but have that really smart human that sits above. They are still the decision maker. If you advocate your decision making to AI, you are in a world of hurt.
yeah,
Because they don't have, if you go to intuition and also what's going to work, what's not going to work, that is still flown by the right pilot. You cannot advocate those big decisions to AI. They can collate the data, they can give you the arguments, but like you cannot advocate that. And that's what we're seeing right now. And if you're looking at how we process, every human mind, they're fundamentally the same in many different ways, but we do pick up new traits and new triggers. And right now, it's really interesting with AI. I've gone all in on my team going, I need you to become AI professors.
yeah,
We will have a role in our organization. Now, what's happened, everyone has done that, but as I'm seeing more work come back, I'm seeing more AI work, really big, really deep. But I'm like, no, you're not now communicating in a human way, you're communicating in a machine way. You didn't get my attention and interest up here. You're not talking to my reptilian or my prop brain. So none of that is actually engaged. I want to ignore it because I can see the hallmarks of AI in your work, which means, is this your work? Is it the machine's work? If you put much effort or low effort? And the thing with AI, you can spend 5 minutes on a prompt and get this huge wad of work. Is it good or not? The role of the human is to shape it so it connects with another human to move them and influence.
yeah. It's good. I'm glad you're saying this because I think exactly the same. And I think it's a massive watch out. And it comes back to choice. It also comes back to, like, if we're not careful, we're shutting down our subconscious, right? And just the conscious. And we're just kind of like, for me, it just feels like everyone is, if we're not careful, we're going to become a sea of beige and brands are going to become a sea of beige. Like, I think this is where we've got to continue to elevate the human and decipher the patterns that are coming out, and then what does it mean? And so what does it mean for the brand? What does it mean for, how you're, I guess, engaging with the human to ultimately get them to buy your product?
But that right there, B, is the key, is we don't buy from businesses, we buy from brands, and brands have human traits and characteristics, and trust is implicit. So we need to communicate human to human. It's not machine to human. There's a disconnect.
Mm,
So why do you make it really human?
mm,
Story is one of the most powerful concepts.
yeah,
If you look at throughout history, I remember sitting out in the Australian desert and they had an Indigenous tribe and they were sharing the stories they used to create that were passed down from generation to generation. They were wrapped in physical movement as well. Physical movement, and there's memory as well, but it's all wrapped in story. What to eat, what not to eat, the tribes not to go to, the tribes that are safe. It's
mm,
all wrapped in story.
mm.
And there's these forgotten arts that AI doesn't particularly leverage that well or forgotten in terms of this human to human communication.
So then what do you, like when you're working with your clients and marketers and, there's a lot of fear at the moment around, oh my God, I've got to be right. Like you've talked around, you said to your team, you need to become AI professors and, AI is becoming essentially part of the infrastructure of your business. What are you seeing like in terms of the sorts of conversations that you're having with your clients? And I guess in terms of, where I'm going with this is I was speaking to somebody on the pub last night and I said, I'm noticing a bit of decision fatigue at the moment. And he said to me, I'm not sure about decision fatigue. I'm more, and this is coming from a leadership perspective. And he said, I'm noticing more leadership, like uncertainty, because there's so much uncertainty at stake here. It's then causing almost this kind of, well, which way do we go and how do we go forward? Like, what are you noticing? And then what are the types of conversations you're having with your clients when it comes to where we're currently at in this crazy revolution and the speed and pace of everything.
AI will change how we do business from here until forever, but it's how we deploy it is really important. And this is going, I think the confusion, like a confused mind will always say no. So right now you're seeing a lot of people that have a high level of confusion because they don't know what the right option is and they don't want to be wrong. So right now, and you go from my perspective, AI, you look at things in your business that you can become a whole lot more efficient with AI. Yes. My advice to anyone and my team in particular is I need you to become a better pilot. I need you to actually to elevate and make better decisions. And I need you to become a better human, and you have the tools that run the dry, monotonous work for you. So you're actually elevating what you're doing and having, if anything, better thinking. I need humans to have more thinking time, more processing time to work things through, because this is really dangerous. If anyone doesn't follow Dr. Jared Horvath, you should. He's really one of the preeminent leaders of neuroscience when it comes to learning. So he was actually in front of Congress. It would have been 3 or 4 months ago, and he was sharing some data on what's happening with the next generation coming through of students. So we've seen cognitive decline across all areas
100%.
of learning. And this is because we're advocating to machines and we're not learning ourselves. Like, he is whiteboard, he is paper, he's not machines. That doesn't accelerate learning. So for us, be really engaged, problem solve. Don't rely on AI. And that's the one thing that I keep on seeing with AI. I have these inputs that come back to me and I'm just like, you are really wrong. But if I didn't know what I know, I'd be sharing some really wrong information. I think that's what you need is experts that really understand their craft. They will elevate because they can spot where AI is out. But it's a powerful machine. So I'm not sure if that answers your question at all.
It does, and you talked around the learning, and quite simply, if we're not careful, we can become dumber, right? Like, and I, I use that kind of that term, and I shouldn't really, in terms of, at the end of the day, though, it comes back to, pardon?
It's true.
It's totally true, right? And if we're not careful, like for me, it's getting back to taking, I mean, the ability to, because everything is at such pace and because there is so much information we're consuming, we're clogging up. The cognitive overload is wild at the moment. And so when we're like that, we're unable to think, we're unable to like have any form of critical thinking, any form of creativity, any form of problem solving. And so for me, what I'm observing even with myself at times is if I'm feeling like that, you become lazy because you're just like, "Oh, just because you've got so much going on." This comes back to purpose and impact as well, like what you said at the start. And then I get into that flap of like you, and I'm like, "What am I doing? What's this all adding up to? What is the purpose? What is the meaning of all of this?" And it's only when I have the ability to step away, switch off from the machine, let myself, like subtract. That's when all the clarity comes through for me, and then it feels like then I'm able to problem solve and get back to what I need to get back to in order to do what I need to do.
This might be what you were talking about in terms of intuition. Like, I know when I'm trying to solve my biggest problems, it's not me sitting in front of a laptop. It's actually me on the bike going for a walk. It's
Yeah.
like you actually get a lot of clarity and thought when you step away from a situation or problem, and it's literally, it's just like if you're looking at your subconscious, it's all sitting there, but you just need to create the space to process it. Like, you're not going to be able to create that
No.
within your conscious thought, because that's actually arguably one of our best pieces of machinery, but it's actually not where we are really living our purpose. So it's, yeah, how do you get more into the body? How do you get really connected? And that's where you'll make your best decisions.
Agree. So tell us quickly a little bit about your book and tell us a little bit more about your neuroscience marketing framework.
Yeah, so the book, again, if I go back to radio, this was kind of the point in time where it's just like we had bad assets that didn't do anything. And I got so sick of that. I started working with some of the leading creative directors, a lot in the US and some in Australia, and neuroscientists, Dr. Jared being one of them. And I was just trying to join dots and going, okay, here's all these ads. They worked and they worked really well, both from a performance and brand perspective. Here's all these ads. They did kind of okay. Here's all these ads, and they just did nothing. Like, help me unpack. So we had technology, everything from EEG to helmets on heads to understand where memory encoding occurs. So that was kind of the high tech through to like there's about there's 6 different levels of what you'll call neuromarketing. Now, the most interesting thing when you talk to neuroscientists, they say none of them are actually true or real. They are proxies, but you'll never actually know. There's no way to measure if memory's fault or not. They are proxies. So this is where one of the leading technology firms right now, System One, it's actually literally like glorified surveys. It's like you clicking to how you feel on an ad. So you're actually using conscious thought for what is subconscious measurement. So it's really interesting, but no one knows and no one really cares. But right now, CMOs go, I need someone to validate that I've made a good ad. I can pay 5 to 10 grand there, and I've got someone that said it's a good ad, not my problem. So it's nearly an insurance policy. So that's like really interesting there when you go to the science of that. Back to the key advice. The more you understand around human behavior and how the brain really works, the better the decisions you'll make pre making any ad. And that's really what I wanted to create in the book was like, what have we learned that has a high chance or a high probability of being a really successful ad that will drive commercial outcomes? What has a low probability, and it's usually art and, a great idea, and it's a conscious thought of something that's really clever that a brand has that won't transpire to market or commercial success. So there's 12 principles within it. There's 2 overarching laws. It's literally like a framework anyone can pick up, you can read, and I want to help everyone's knowledge base of going, I can make better creative decisions rather than using my boardroom brain or my neocortex to analyze an ad, because it's not the right brain or filter to use when you're critiquing assets.
Love it. I love this. I'm gonna do a real deep dive into this framework. Two final questions for you. If I'm observing, and then obviously had 25 years in the creative advertising communications industry, and I'm observing that, I know you're performance based, but I would love your thoughts on this. I'm observing that we are going to start to see a real evolution when it comes to channels and, obviously how we're communicating to consumers. I just feel like it is evolving, and maybe it's more around the industry is evolving. I just think there's different ways that we're able to communicate to consumers now, and obviously and how they make a choice on a brand. Are you think that we're going to be undertaking an evolution as such in terms of the type of channels, or do you think we're going to see a renaissance back to more traditional channels when it comes to consumer decisions? Both.
So, yeah, so we're going to have a huge advocation of decision makings, which will be to your AI search. So it's like, if I need a plumber, I'm going to advocate that decision because they're going to have a better chance of finding the right one. So any of those 0-click moments, that is going to be critical. So that's what I'll call performance now. This is like the Yellow Pages moment. It was really important to own Yellow Pages. Then it was really important to own Google. Now it's going to be really important to own AI search. The challenge with AI search, some are free, some are paid. If you don't own that, you're missing out from the advocation of a lot of people that don't actually want to think through. Now, the brand will still play a role, but not as much. The other will be brand, and I think we'll see a huge renaissance of brand. What is brand?
Are you asking me that question?
Yeah, Ben, what's brand to you?
Gosh, it's a good one. It comes right back to story for me. It comes back to storytelling, in terms of that's probably not answering the question properly. To me, it's something that I have an affiliation with. It provides meaning. It's got purpose within it. It's impactful, and it has a story that I connect with, and I connect with it from a subconscious level. It's something that, comes right back to, and I say intuition, soul. I feel it. Like it feels part of me. It feels part of who I am, if that makes sense. And I want to see more of that again, because right now, my concern is that if we're not careful, we could be seeing a lot of brands that become just beige. I'll give you an example. Like, obviously love fashion, love clothes, and I quite often say to and certain brands that I used to love, and I'm just like, I want them back, because I go shopping and I look around and I'm like, it's just all so beige. You know, it's really hard to find what I used to be able to find, and I just don't have any connection with it. So I don't know if that answers your question. That's how I see it.
It is. Look, and I think when you look at brand, there's so many different layers to it. Like I go, product market fit is critical. So like right now, it's like no one is actually making a product that you love, and it
No.
could have the right brand label on it, but it's not actually the product that you want to buy. So you probably got a sense of nostalgia of like I'm the number one. Like literally, I bought 5 suits the other day, and I got 10 shirts because I hate shopping, and I just like that's what I like and that's what I want.
Yeah.
I buy the same stuff like all the time. Like if I find a pair of shoes, I'll just buy lots of them so I don't have to think about it. But like the brand is like product market fit, yes. So understand your market and what they really want and solve their problems. Like that is brand. I will go more so in terms of brand is really memory and the association you have
Mm.
and the category entry point more so. So if I'm thinking of, again, I'm moving home and I need some storage, do you know what I mean? There'll be 2 or 3 brands that pop into
Yeah.
mind because that is your category entry point, but who owns that and why? And how do you own, and this is where you go mere exposure effect, it's recency frequency, but it's like, what do you own in the consumer's mind?
Yeah.
Actually mapping that out and being deliberate with it and being so consistent with it. I'm talking 5, 10 years plus and being consistent. Not the
100%.
same ad, but the same message. Keep it simple. Because one thing I see all the time in the world of advertising is consumers don't care about ads. They are just observing and consuming them, most often subconsciously. So they don't want to spend much time, thought, or energy around what you actually stand for, but you need to do a great job of that. So it's keeping it really, really simple, but owning something, which is the critical part.
Great conversation, Jonathan. You feel like just this like guru when it comes to this stuff. Everyone should be talking to you if they're at a crossroads with their brand at the moment and, you know, kind of where to next. Because it just, yeah, I'm going to read your book as well. You've also just restarted your podcast, The Science of Advertising show. When has it actually kicked off again as yet? Or
Yeah, so we've just kicked off, but yeah, we'll be producing new episode each week. And again, we'll be inviting, some of the best creative directors and thinkers in the market and CMOs. We unpack like a new piece of asset. We usually have brand wars. So we'll pick 2 different ads from a category and we'll unpack what's good, what's not so good around some of them. And then we'll go back to the archives, which are called the GOAT files. So the greatest of all time. And more so like what was so good around those ads and how does that influence and persuade more so embedded memory.
but Jonathan, thank you so much for your time. How do we find out more about Undivided if we wanted to contact you to understand a bit more about your framework, your neuromarketing framework? How would we get in contact with you?
Yeah, either just a contact form on our page, which is undivided.com.au, or just connect on LinkedIn, Jonathan Rolley. I'm pretty active there. So, yeah, look forward to connecting.
Thank you so much. Have a great Friday afternoon.
Thanks, Big.
Thank you.